This is a very neurodivergent friendly community, neurodivergent to neurodivergent. We love to see a person get diagnosed because it means they can know more about themselves and their place in the universe. And also every time I see a content creator get diagnosed, I just know there's a correlation, causation, maybe not literally, where every time I see a content creator get diagnosed, I think to myself, of course, because who else spends this much time dedicated to making content someone never watches or everybody watches? Jacksepticeye has come out. Let's hear him talk about it. I'm so happy for him. It must feel really good to know a little bit more about yourself.
I like trains. Now that we get that out of the way, I wanted to do a video talking about a recent thing that happened to me, which was I was diagnosed with autism. I'm going to leave some time there for a lot of you to be like, yeah, duh, we knew.
And Jack is already Jacksepticeye. His real name's not Jack, right? I don't watch him. Is his real name Jack, or is that the name he calls himself on YouTube? I don't remember. But Jacksepticeye is also ADHD. So he's odd ADHD, which is kind of cool. Also, is his volume okay? Thank you. His name is Sean. Sean? Is his real name Sean? Because I think Jacksepticeye is like a fake name. Yeah, Sean. Okay, thank you.
Well, if you knew, why didn't you tell me? No one told me. I want to talk about it because I think it's important to open up that conversation, because after having it be diagnosed,
shout out to his Berserk t-shirt,
officially by a doctor, a lot of people came to me and were like, oh, but you're so like social and you're so like your community.
Is he though? Because content creators are really good at making people think they're social, but are they?
Communication is great, and like I couldn't tell, and I think that that's an important distinction to make, because even for me growing up,
also extroverted autistic people exist.
In like the 90s or the early 2000s, autism had to be that thing that was what is now known as nonverbal autism. It had to be the people who need to stim all the time. It had to be people who need repetitive motions, who can't really communicate well. It was that like really stereotypical version of it that a lot of people still think today is what autism is. And don't get me wrong, that is part of the spectrum of it, and some people are that way, but that's not the entire picture anymore. And for me, for a long time, I was like, oh, I have ADHD. And I thought that that was the reason why a lot of the things I do are the way I do them.
I mean, there is a lot of overlap, let me tell you, between ADHD and autism. And it's so interesting to know which one's causing which.
But it turns out that ADHD and autism are also like a Venn diagram, or like they're part of the same spectrum, or however you want to visualize it. Mm-hmm. It's basically, I don't want to say basically, but to put it like in the basic, most banal terms, they're basically the same thing. And I got tested because of my own curiosity. I just like figuring out how my body is, why I am the way I am,
Love that.
how I kind of like fit into different places in the world, and also just to kind of like give myself peace of mind, because when I was a kid, I was the outsider. I was weird. I played video games too much on my own. I like stayed liking the things that other people didn't really like anymore. Like they moved on, like, oh, I don't like video games anymore. And I'm like, oh, I still like love video games. They're cool. I love Sonic the Hedgehog and trains. I actually don't even really like trains or Sonic the Hedgehog. That's how no one knew I was autistic. As I got older, I was like, I have ADHD for sure, definitely. And I went and got tested for that and got medicated for that, and it didn't really work. And I'm trying like different medications right now for it, but at the time I was like, it's not really like clicking. Like I have friends and other people I know who have ADHD and they take medications like it's night and day. That's not always the case for everybody, but just some of the things they were saying about their ADHD, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of like that, but also like a lot more. It just felt, when I was younger, it basically felt like I was the outsider. And then when I got ADHD, I was like, I still kind of feel like the outsider. So I felt like there was something more. So I wanted to go get tested for autism. As I was learning more about it, I started reading stuff that people with ADHD can have autism as well, that they overlap with each other quite a lot. And then I was like, reading.
Does anyone know how old Sean is? Is he got to be in his 30s like me, right? Probably a little older than I am. Because that's also interesting too, is what age people are getting diagnosed, because they're actually realizing as they get older, there's like deficiencies or something isn't working. And you'll know because of the data, like your life will show you. 34. Okay, cool. So I'm actually older. I'm a little older. But yeah, like that's one of the things that's fascinating is like you want to get to know yourself more. You want to figure out things about yourself. And so it might feel to boomers like, oh, y'all are just getting diagnosed. But the process is really getting to know ourselves better. And we're relying on that data to be accurate. So it's like a misdiagnosis is really scary. As many of you know who's ever been misdiagnosed, it's like a scary process because you change your life around a diagnosis. And then you realize, oh my gosh, this thing that I've been doing hasn't been working. And like he said with ADHD, it's not necessarily like, oh, great, I have ADHD. Give me meds. It works. You have to pick the meds that work for you. There's different kinds of ADHD meds. Not everybody's ADHD relationship is the same. Being autistic isn't a monolith. Like all of these things are so individualized, and yet there's so much overlap, which is why like sometimes like, you know, recognizes like, or like you can like, oh yeah, like I see myself in you, even though we're different people, we might have some overlap. And I think that's why exciting to see like people have a realization about themselves later in life, because now you can recontextualize your whole life as, oh, because autism isn't something you get diagnosed with unless it actually is something that you can reference in your childhood. Like in order to be autistic, you also have to see deficiencies that exist in childhood through adulthood. And so it's kind of interesting when you're an adult who wasn't diagnosed as a child, you have to go back through your whole childhood and find out every moment in your life that something stood out to you or something was weird or someone gave you feedback that, oh, you're being a little different. And then you have to understand, like, what is that difference? Why is it being pointed out? Why did somebody notice it? Why did I notice it myself? And then you have to realize, like, oh, okay, now my life makes sense to me in a different way. Your life could make sense to you. I'm sure Sean went through his whole life thinking my life makes sense to me until it didn't. And just word to the wise. When you are high masking and you start to unmask, disabled will be your new favorite word, because high masking sounds great. Sounds like a skill. And it is. It's also a huge cope. And when you stop having to cope because you're in a safe space, you realize how disabled you are. And it is a very interesting experience for a lot of people to go through. And so just FYI, once you get off the high masking train, it's hard to get back on. Okay?
Reading down the list, it was like, if you have autism, you likely have ADHD, you likely have depression and anxiety, you likely have intestinal issues, you likely have hypermobility and joint issues, and you likely have asthma. And I was like, I have all of these things. I just have like a soup of like mess going on inside of me. And then as I started to understand, it was like, oh, all of these things are kind of like under the umbrella of neurodivergency. And I just thought it was interesting to get checked for different things.
Very cool. Also, I think this is so cool that he is getting checked and sharing it with his audience, because what a cool thing to make people aware of. Like, you can be, because look, like Sean is successful, 30 million subscribers. He's really well loved in communities. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about him, but right, like he is still discovering things about himself in his mid-40s, and he's sharing it to such a large audience. I've heard through TikTok that this was coming out because somebody said Keemstar and other people were like going after him for being like, oh, all these people just want to be autistic. Just a reminder, none of those people are going to help you in your life. This is going to help you so much more in your life than somebody like Keemstar, who's a boomer, who thinks, oh, everyone just wants to be autistic. Okay. And talk about imposter syndrome. You can't trick the doctors into diagnosing you with autism. If they're actually doing their job, they're not going to misdiagnose you. If they're being lazy, if they're not paying attention, if they're not actually interested, sure. But you have to get a medical professional to diagnose you. Okay. It has to be a doctor, somebody who understands what they're diagnosing. And if they're really good at their job, they're not going to want to misdiagnose you. Okay. I think the problem is like we run into people that are human. So they make mistakes, or they're lazy, or they're not interested in actually knowing you. That's why I say fire your medical professionals that aren't genuinely interested in helping you find the right answers, the true answers.
So just learn more about myself. And as I've gotten diagnosed with ADHD and autism, and even for me, getting diagnosed with autism was just such a massive positive. He was talking me through it and was like, some people react poorly to it. Some people don't like to be confronted. Some people don't think they have it and are a bit in denial about it. And I was like, I see this as nothing but a win. I finally have like more answers about myself, why I am the way I am. And not just for other people and where I fit in with things, because like it doesn't change anything about me. I'm still the exact same person I was. But for me, it makes me go easier on myself having these diagnoses about the conditions that I have. Like knowing that I'm autistic, ADHD, ADHD as they call it. Makes me go easier on myself, being like, okay, that's why I couldn't really keep up in college, because my brain just kind of like works at a different pace.
Yes.
It doesn't really study things the way other people study it in a neurotypical way. And it's made me like recontextualize my life a lot more and made me just feel better about myself.
Ugh. Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from all of this, because I've lived with it for so long now, 34 years of my life, that like it's not going to change anything really.
Okay, can I say something too? You know how there's pick-me's? There's also neurodivergent pick-me's, where there are neurodivergents that are so ashamed of not being able to finish school that instead of actually admitting like their disabilities like got in the way, they actually will say like, oh, I didn't even need school. Like, school, I don't even need it. And it's not my autism, or it wasn't my disability. Like, it's kind of interesting. I'll meet people who won't realize how much their neurodivergency is impacting them because they think it's like shameful, which is ironic because after they get diagnosed, they make an attempt to better their life, but also making an attempt to better your life is also a reminder that they have a thing and they don't want to have a thing. So then they pretend like their thing doesn't impact their life. But the thing is that sometimes it's hard to admit this thing is impacting you. Sometimes it's hard to admit like, oh yeah, like I'm this smart and capable person, but God forbid I have to like sit in a classroom. Like, what is that? Because the insinuation is that dumb people are unable to sit in a classroom, but that's not true, right? Like, that's not how that works. And so it is kind of cool to hear him say like, okay, this makes a lot of sense for my schooling. Like, I think about my schooling growing up and how everyone in my school, even in homeschooling, was telling my parents, get her diagnosed for ADHD. And my parents were like, no, my kids don't have these things. These things are made up. And it's like, yeah, all that time I was struggling in school. Could you imagine if I had a different relationship with my education? Maybe I would have been different, or maybe it would have been the same. But it's kind of interesting.
It'll just make me dealing with myself a bit easier. It'll make me go easier on myself and treat myself a bit more kindly. And I think that's really important, because how many of us don't treat ourselves kindly? And a lot of people are probably like, Sean, why are you telling everybody? Well, it's not like you got diagnosed with cancer or something. I get it. Like I said, it doesn't really change much about myself. And it's not like a...
See, you know how people... Okay, I've met people who are like, oh yeah, my diagnosis isn't going to change anything. Guys, if I got diagnosed, it changes everything for me. A new diagnosis means my life is about to change. Because I'm about to do everything different. Because like, it means the thing that I was struggling with before that led me to getting a diagnosis means the thing that's going to help me not struggle as much means a change in my life. Y'all getting diagnosed and not changing your life? When I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, it changed my life. I started working out. I started paying attention to my body. I'm gluten-free. Like, I literally changed my life. My life is not the same. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to be in the same struggle I was in. Of course it changes everything because I'm going to get better now. Not cure. I'm going to have a better life because that was the point of seeking the diagnosis, to get better. Not to cure it, but to learn to live in symbiosis, positive symbiosis with it. So yeah, I get confused, I think, when I hear people say like this diagnosis isn't going to change anything.
Condition that's like really like life-threatening for me, or anything like that. But I think it's a good conversation to have, because when I talked about being diagnosed with ADHD, the amount of people that came out in support of that, but also said that they got tested because of me. Like, even my agent said he got tested much later in life, older than I am, because of the stuff I was saying.
Great.
And I know that some people are going to say the same thing about this, like, oh, I didn't know autism can like present itself that way. Like, looking at me, you wouldn't think that I was autistic for a lot of people. So I think it's important to have that conversation and also just normalize it. Yeah. I'm trying to change this industry. I'm going into next year.
See how the diagnosis changed things? It did change things. It changed the content in a better way, more representation. We love to see it.
With an evolutionary mindset that I want to change this industry from people who are obsessed with ambition and legacy. Legacy is just another word for ego and narcissism. Like, you're trying to build up a life for yourself that you want people to remember you after you're dead.
You know, I remember having a criticism of Jacksepticeye once, I think, when he was taking a lie detector test. Was that Jacksepticeye, right? Where he was like saying that Logan Paul just cares about clicks and views. But I was like, yeah, but like you have 30 million subscribers. I will say this is different categorization. The Logan Pauls are different than the Jacksepticeyes. Even if both of them have a ton of subscribers, Logan Paul will sell his like firstborn son for a dollar bill. But Jacksepticeye is willing to take a pay cut if it's the right thing to do. And that's the difference. And then the result might look the same outwardly, like Jacksepticeye does thumbnails and he has 30 million subscribers and he didn't get there on accident, but he didn't have to sell his firstborn son to do it. But Logan would absolutely sell his firstborn son to sell Prime. And that's the difference. So I'm much more a fan of Jacksepticeye's bubble than like the Logan Paul bubble, right? Because like I don't like it either. I don't like the selling out morals. I don't like the selling out your firstborn child. I don't like the people you're willing to throw under the bus for success. And for what? For the 70 years you're going to live here, you're just going to ruin a bunch of people's lives. Like, what's the point of that, right? So yeah, shout out to Sean for wanting to go into 2025, making a difference.
How self-involved is that? Do good things and hope people do good things back and just spread positivity and joy, you know? But I want to change this sort of mentality around mental health and the way people operate and this whole idea of like chasing ambition and views and goals and projects and being better than yourself every single day. It's fine to want to be better, but at the behest of absolutely everything else in your life where your mental health struggles and all you're doing is being productive and making things and just not living your life or being a person or exploring your own mental health and your own mentalities or dealing with the stuff in your past that fucked you up as a kid that's driving you to be ambitious because your dad probably instilled something in you or your mom wasn't proud enough of you, so you're trying to like, you know what I mean? Try to break down these walls and not like hide away from all of this shit.
Yes, ma'am.
Have people like sit in this sort of like pseudo masculinity nonsense that we're all kind of hiding in. At least from my perspective, being like, I don't know. I'm just kind of tired of the lack of conversation around a lot of this stuff. And a lot of people, when I announced on Twitter that I had autism, people were like, dude, why would you admit to that? Like it's some sort of bad...
Oh, because they're going to hold it against you. They're going to hold it against you. They're going to make videos. And every time someone says something, they're like, that's your autism. Now, don't get me wrong. In a safe space where people are all autistic, it could be your autism, but you're not punished for it. Which is why in my community, you're not punished for like having a disability. But we want to give each other tools that it doesn't run our life. Run the world, autism. Who run the world? Autism, you know? But also, they will use it against you. They will. They'll make videos and they'll say, oh, this is the autism. That's why I like to remind people of all these people we talk about throughout its history, autistic. Like, okay, also, I saw a TikTok where it's like, why do people make fun of Elon Musk for being a robot? He's autistic. And that's true too. Just a reminder, Elon is autistic. So if you ever see Elon Musk and think he socializes weird, he talks like a robot. Yeah, don't be an ableist. He might be a person, but his autism isn't why he's shitty. And a lot of people think autistic people are, quote, creepy because they're ableist. Like they don't even know. They don't know anything about autism, right? So just like keep that in mind, right?
Bad thing. It's some sort of thing that suddenly like makes me worse or makes me a different person. It doesn't. I would guarantee you that 99% of the people who do YouTube or do content creation or any sort of creative artistic thing all have ADHD.
Didn't I say that at the beginning of this video, bitch? I'm telling you, the arts, the obsession, the interest, the fact that like, if you're willing to do it for not the money, there's something about that where like, I will do this job for the rest of my life, even if I don't make money, because I seem to love this thing. This is the thing my brain seems to love, right? Same with like even Asmin, who I've unsubscribed to and move away from that boy bubble because it's too toxic. But even Asmin, I'm like, get diagnosed, you're autistic, like do it. Because he's the kind of guy, same thing, like he will do it whether he makes the money or not. Like when you do things, when it's not motivated by money, but it's actual interest and you have like an actual focus on something, that's most likely neurodivergency. And that's why it's interesting. That's why it's interesting. But yeah, believe me when I say Sean is right. And people will absolutely discount what he says in the future because of his autism. And that is why ableism is bad. That's why discrimination is bad. Because you're unable to view a person through their like lived lens and understand that some of the greatest minds throughout history that you like worship the ground they walk on, probably autistic. Especially in the philosophy bubbles, okay? All these debate bros that are referencing all these philosophers without ever thinking about their neurodivergency. And that's it. The debate bro bubble is so neurodivergent, but they think they're better than the other neurodivergents. They're like, I'm better than you because like I'm not disabled. It's like, I don't even care that I have ADHD. I'm going to debate you. And it's like, okay. But also, do you see in the ways your neurodivergency is, because you're not taking care of it, is playing out in your life negatively? Because like you have to take care of yourself. And sometimes our neurodivergency is, because it's a disability, can be very harmful to ourselves, whether it's like grooming or eating or sleeping properly or anything else, or maybe even in some correlation between ADHD and promiscuity, maybe impulsivity, that compulsive, like negative part of our life. Like these are all opportunities to be healthier, not richer, healthier.
There's a reason that a lot of us are attracted to a job where we make our own hours and we get to communicate with people through a camera rather than having to be in front of them 24/7.
Exactly.
You know,
didn't I tell you every time? YouTubers are so good at looking like social bees when really we're hiding behind this camera.
There's a definite pattern to this non-conformity aspect of like not wanting to do a regular 9-to-5 job. So you sit in front of a camera playing video games or, you know, and I bet you like half of those people probably have autism. And they just don't realize that that's what autism is, like the way it presents itself. And it's the sort of terminologies and the paperwork and everything about it. The conversation around autism and what it is completely changing. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even said, I mean, even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said that I had autism. And now here I am where I'm like, yeah, the signs were all there all along. And the way it presents itself in me is not so much, apparently my communication is good, but people don't realize, like, when I'm conversing with people, I'm going through like a million different things in my brain. I'm overanalyzing the way I am. I'm overanalyzing everything that I say. I'm pushing everything through a filter in my brain.
So from my understanding, if you're high masking, you are overcompensating harder than a person who isn't masking. Like if you are unable to high mask, like really high mask, then you are expending so many more energy and spoons to that high masking, which is why your body is like coping very hard with it. But also when you stop doing that, it's also why you kind of lose control of everything. It's like balancing a bunch of plates and you almost like lose the skill and then it's like much harder for you. But if you're this used to be much more of my life. And when I stopped high masking as hard, I kind of crumbled under the pressure. Because I was so good at filtering, I was so good at thinking about everything, and I don't do it as much, and it is getting me in trouble, which is why moving into 2025, we're going to work on a healthy balance between proper masking, appropriate behavior, and filtering my thoughts before I say them out loud. Okay, so we want to, instead of just saying, well, it's my neurodivergency, it's how my brain works, I know. But let's like up our skill level and remember that we have the skills through therapy and other means to wait, filter, speak. And I'm going to practice. It's going to take me a bit, but I want to get back on track of being actually not just like high masking as a cope, but like proper interaction as a person. Because I can't expend the spoons I've been using to high mask. But I can spend those spoons getting better at pausing. It just pause. Like it sounds so crazy, but like people who are silent, they just do better in life. You know, people who are quiet, people perceive them as smarter because they're not talking. So then they project their thoughts onto that person. I just can't, just don't talk. But then I have to work on my facial expressions because I'm also like, you know, my facial expressions be giving it away.
I'm reading everyone's body language all the time to like see where things fit in. So I always say that I'm a really good judge of character because I'm like hyper analyzing people all the time. And not in any sort of judgmental way where I like throw it back.
Nope, but just like in the autistic way where you're observing every detail of a person and considering what category they belong to. I get it.
Look at them. But for me, it's like a thing that I can use to kind of like help me get through conversations and social structures a bit easier. And I'm able to weave in and out through that. And I use comedy as my tool to do that. I can like sit down in a group of people, use comedy, and within 5 minutes, I can get a beat on everybody and I can figure them out. And
I thought this was my superpower my whole life. And I thought I am so good at socializing. People love me. I'm so good because I can read the script and I know what people want me to say. Oh, wait. I told my partner the other day, I was like, I know how to small talk. When a person says, wow, the weather, am I right? You look up. If it's sunny, you say, I know, girl, it's so hot outside. If it's cold, you say, oh my God, girl, it's so cold outside. And he was like, Brittany. And I was like, what? He goes, no, if you're making small talk, it's an opportunity to have like a conversation. I was like, yes, but if they say, oh my gosh, this weather, I go, yes. And then I appropriately respond, what are you doing to me right now? And he's just like, no, listen. I was like, no, you listen. Some opportunities are time to like bond with strangers and have an interesting conversation that's off the cuff. Most of the time, small talk is an appropriate back and forth script. Hi, how are you today? I'm good. How are you today? I am good. This weather, am I right? I know. It's so cold outside. Ha ha. And then you walk away. I know the script. I've been studying it my whole life. Don't lecture me. But also, I know there are times in which you're meeting up with a person. You're like, oh my God, I love your dog. How cute. Thanks. He's my best friend. Oh my God, amazing coat. Oh my gosh, thanks. I got it from this store. Oh my gosh, that store. I know that store. I also buy clothes from this store. Okay, bond, bond, bond. Oh my gosh, blah, 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 blah. And then you can maybe like figure out you both love the same band. I know the scripts. Don't lecture me. But also, you know, it takes spoons. It takes spoons.
That's my superpower, guys. I have autism. I have superpowers. And that's why it's hard when you're like, it is my superpower, because your superpower is a cope, girl. You just wait till you're too tired to use that superpower. So with me, it's sensory things. Like I've talked a lot about, like, let's say BB goes for a poop in the kitchen. I can smell when he goes to the bathroom immediately. I can pick up on the smell of shit a mile away. I'm like a shark with blood in the water. And then if he like shits on himself or something, I'm like, Evelyn, you got to clean it up, because if I look at it and smell it and touch it, I gag.
Okay, when Indiana, because we took Indiana to the vet the other day, and she's been spitting up a lot more often, and my partner will scream, don't come into the family room, don't come. And like, because he'll hear me while I have the heaviest footsteps in the world, and I'll start walking towards the family room, and he'll be like, don't look down, don't look at it. And I'm like, what? And like, he tries to protect me from it because I'm very sensitive. I will clean it. I mean, I've taken care of Indiana most of my life alone, and I've cleaned up her spit before. But it is one of those things where like I have to like suppress every part of myself not to join her. And I'm very sensitive to like everything. And so he'll try to like block me from it. Oh, is my stream still here? It should be still here, but let me know if I cut off. Let me know. Wait, I'm going to pause. It looks like my OBS is reconnecting. Am I here? Okay, I thought it was me. Okay, no, we cut out for a second. All of this to say, shout out to our partners who are able to understand we're having sensory issues. We're not just trying to avoid the responsibility of like cleaning up after our animals, right? Like Sean isn't not trying to clean up after the animal. He's trying to express that the sensory stuff it's intense. That's why brushing my teeth is so intense. Brushing my teeth is like very similar. It's like a gag reflex. Like it's really horrible. That's why I'm like happy with the toothpaste that I found recently, but also it took me a second to get used to it. It took me like a week or two to get used to it. It's really surprising at first. It's really salty, but at least it's not sweet.
Nonstop. Like I want to be able to help, but I can't do it. I will gag crazy with certain foods. I'm a bit weird with like the textures and the consistencies of them. So for me, it's like a lot of sensory things. But apparently I'm doing masking like all the time. So it's really interesting. I think it's interesting to see like a lot of the stuff that people talk about like in social situations and like, no, I'm just introverted and all. You probably are autistic and you just don't realize it. And unfortunately, getting tested for autism is a really tricky thing to do, because I went privately because the waiting list publicly on the NHS is like 2 years. Whoa. Fuck that. I can't imagine having to wait that long to kind of like get an answer for things for yourself. So I feel for everybody out there who has to wait that long. I'm lucky that I was able to go.
Oh my God. Literally, Chet says when I'm brushing my teeth and family members are as well, I have to go find a different washroom because if they spit near me, I'll want to throw up instantly. Same as if I'm watching TV shows. Like if I'm watching a TV show and they're brushing their teeth, I have to look away. I don't watch it. I can't. If I watch someone brush their teeth, I get nauseous. That's why when primary bedrooms have sinks next to each other, I'm like, no, I need separate bathrooms. I can't watch people brush their teeth. It grosses me out. Like it literally makes me so nauseous.
Private, and it still took like 2.5 months to get that assessment ready. And the assessment was fine. For anyone who's thinking about doing it, the assessment for me was go in and sort of like break down your life in a way that is like, were you always like this as a kid? How did you play with other kids? How did you interact with other people? Were you shy? Were you communicative? How did you imagine your play when you were a kid? And now as an adult, how do you interact with other people? Is it difficult to like keep eye contact? All of those types of questions that you kind of expect will be asked. But there's an assessment form that they go down through that actually is like graded. And for me, one of the scores, there was like a couple of things that I was being scored on, but one of the scores was like, the threshold was like anything over 100 is probably autism spectrum. And I scored like 121. So it wasn't like a crazy high number. But there's definitely like the traits are there. And you're not really supposed to say like moderate, severe, or like high functioning and all of that kind of stuff anymore, because it's kind of degrading, but you can kind of like figure out where I am on the spectrum with a bunch of other like terminologies. But the assessment I found actually quite interesting, because it is, some people don't like breaking down their life and like confronting themselves in that way, but I quite enjoy doing that.
Because you're autistic. Don't you love that? Like, it's because you're autistic. Like, it's because, like, that's why there is a correlation. And the ThoughtSpot made a video about this. ThoughtSpot is an autistic content creator, a wonderful person. And she made a video about introspection and autism, and how certain relationships with autism are actually the tool to be more introspective, because you're self-aware enough and you have the ability to dissect information enough to realize like, oh, there's like something here. And so, yeah, like a lot of people don't like to dissect themselves and learn more about themselves, but there is a correlation between philosophy and autism. I just like learned this, that there really is a correlation between people interested in autism and people interested in philosophy and psychology and autism. Like it's like that stereotype of like, oh, if she's autistic, if she like is majored in psychology, it's not even like, it's really is there is not literally true all the time, but there is a high probability if you're like very interested in philosophy and psychology, you could be autistic, which is kind of cool.
That I'm a very introspective person and I like kind of figuring out how I tick. So I thought it was an interesting assessment to go through, but it wasn't scary or anything, at least not for me. So I would say if you're thinking about doing it, but you're kind of like apprehensive about it or scared of it, go for it. If anything, the worst thing that can happen is that you end up exactly in the place that you're in right now.
Well, the worst thing that could happen is that you try to immigrate to a country where it's illegal to immigrate if you're autistic. Or the worst thing that could happen is that you get denied for a job because your medical paper says autistic. Or the worst thing that could happen is that you don't get the benefits you need because you're autistic. Or the worst thing that could happen is that you don't get to adopt children because you're autistic. Or the worst thing that could happen is that you get your rights taken away because you are autistic. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer. There are actually serious consequences to getting diagnosed. So choose wisely if you're ready to get diagnosed and tell people.
And that's probably not that bad. But all the people out there, whenever I'm playing video games, and they're like, man, Sean's so distracted. What is he, stupid? I was pulling my hair out every time he did this. You guys are making fun of an autistic person.
Yeah, you bullies. I get that a lot too. Why can't Brittany, like I got a comment the other day that was like, why Brittany, it's kind of sad that you can't multitask as well. And like, you can't watch chat and do other things. Like even a dumb person could do that. You're basically bullying an autistic girl. Wow. Good for you, buddy. Wow, scram. Do you guys know that TikTok where she's like, stay away from my girlfriend, scram.
Bet you don't feel so good now, huh? You guys were attacking me over stuff that I can't control. How does that feel, huh? Not so good. Some of the reactions to it, though, were really funny. People were like, Jack, we know you did 100 episodes of Happy Wheels. And that was funny. Or I posted like the mustard meme from the Kendrick album of me screaming. And then right after that was like, I got diagnosed with autism. And people were like, duh. I think that's funny. I think it's fine. I'm okay with people joking about it. I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's kind of funny. But I also wanted to talk about it because this is sort of the year where not only in my personal life, I'm trying to live my authentic self, as it's called, and I'm trying to figure out more about myself and gain the confidence to kind of just be me as who I am. But it's also the year of mental health for me and for Thankmas. And I think that's another reason why I like pushed myself to get these assessments and to kind of like open up that conversation and be sort of that person that kind of takes that initiative. So I have an audience of people that I can use that influence to spread a better message and be more positive about it and break down this whole like, dude, don't admit it. Autistic people are bad, or like people are going to treat you differently, or like it's not cool to do that, or, you know, I'm just so tired of that.
Amen.
I'm tired of this version of the internet that we live in where everyone has to be like crazy productive, crazy ambitious, build a legacy, be as cool as you possibly can be, show no signs of weakness whatsoever. That's all bullshit. Not showing weakness and puffing your chest up and trying to be the coolest person you can be and be as productive as you can and do the coolest things you can be, that's weakness to me. Because that means you're just working to hide from what you're actually scared of, which is being alone with yourself and loving yourself.
Oof.
Obviously, I'm
True. I want to see Andrew Tate be alone in a room with himself without crying.
throwing out a bunch
Just
of
kidding. You should cry. I love to cry.
being alone with yourself and loving yourself. Obviously, I'm throwing out a bunch of accusations, and it's not true for everybody.
But it's true for some of them, okay? Not everybody, but it's true for some of them.
It's all unique and it's all different. But you know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at. You know where the vibe I'm sitting in is. And I want to tackle that head on next year. And I want to evolve. I want to be an evolved version of myself.
Let's fucking go. I love this introspection talk, bro. It really gets me going. Same. 2025 is going to be transformative. I feel it in my gut. Do you guys not feel it? 2025 is going to be transformative for so many people, probably depending on the stage you are in life, of course. Like everyone's going to have a different version of it. But I think like I'm so excited. I'm just so optimistic about it because I'm in my mid-30s. Everything's getting really exciting. I'm learning so much about myself. But more than that, like I'm kind of sick of it too. I'm sick of the negativity. I'm sick of also like these boy bubbles that are so toxic and so sure that they are correct when they're so obviously wrong about life. So I'm like, I'm done. This is what I mean. We're gonna start focusing on content creators that are genuinely interested in introspection and genuinely interested in getting better. And Sean is exhibiting exactly the attitude I want to see in people.
That is, this kind of contradicts itself, saying like going against the whole like be better every day. But you know what I mean? I want to be more.
No, what Sean is saying is don't be toxic positive where you're like hustle culture, toxic positivity. Like you don't want to be hustle culture. You want to be more at peace every day, be more aligned with your joy every day, be more self-aware every day, have a better relationship with your family and friends and yourself every day, which is not the same thing as be better every day, hustle culture, more push-ups every day. Like figure out your joy, be in sync with your joy and be good to the people around you. That is a very different journey than this stag. That's why I said yesterday on stream or 2 days ago, whenever we, that what do we owe each other clip on my channel right now. There's a difference between climbing the mountain to the peak of the mountain to make $1 million. That's not in the mountain, right? And getting there to like self-actualize, know more about yourself. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the top of the pyramid is where no one gets to because we're also stuck in the middle, which is usually centered around like fulfillment and selfishness and money and status, which is fine. But eventually, if you're lucky, you grow out of that. And that's why I say being rich isn't the goal. It never has been. It never will be. And if being rich is your goal, what do you do after? Okay, so now you did it. You're rich. Now what? Because I tell you this right now, it won't be enough. It never has been. It never will be. It never will be.
Open to who I am as a person and not dance around shit because of what everybody else tells me I should be acting like. That's what it is. But Thankmas is going ahead soon. Tickets are on sale. If you are close to the LA area, you want to come see it. We have so many guests. I put them up already. You can go to the community.
I actually love that. Chet says being rich is a side quest. Love that. Love it. Great side quest. But it can't be the main quest. Love the side quest though.
Community tab and see it. It's all over Twitter as well. I've been posting.
He's talking about his charity that he runs and he makes he raises a lot of money every year. It's pretty exciting. So if you guys are interested in that.
A lot about it. We have some incredible guests coming up. We have some musical acts. We have 2 shows that are going on. It's going to be a great day. I'm so excited for it. I can't wait to get together as a community and raise money for mental health and kind of like push this narrative of positivity and change and upheaval that I think the industry so desperately needs. Because it's not been a great year for YouTubers and people who everyone thought was amazing and great and like, oh, your numbers are really high, so that means you're a great person. You do a lot of charity, so that means you're a great person. Not always the case.
True.
And I've always tried to be a bit more transparent and honest and break down that wall and that barrier and not build myself up into something that I'm not. And I think that that's important. That's why I'm having this conversation with you right now. That's why I ramble. That's why we're here. That's why we do it. That's the end of it all. Thanks for watching.
Woo.
I don't know. I have autism. That's it.
Yay. Okay, we did it. Oh, congratulations. That's amazing. I actually, chat says, which charities does he do it for? I don't know. I'm assuming all the good ones, but I don't know. You'll have to figure that out. I'm going to link the video in chat so you guys can go check it out in case that's interesting to you. I know a lot of charities, end of the year stuff is like charity end of the year stuff. And even my partner and I have been discussing like which charities do we want to give to and stuff. Usually it's centered around mental health, autism, whatever is associated with the thing that we're interested in donating to. And you don't have to donate a lot, obviously, you know, I get it. But it is kind of a nice thing. We always talk about like when we're, you know, if we ever make like an excess amount of money, like who do we want to give it to? Like what charities do we want to like fund? And I told him like, I definitely want to fund the arts. Like I have friends in the arts and they're always looking for funding. I would love to be a donor for one of them. Like I would love, because their productions are great, but there's never enough money, of course. And so like, I would love to be that person who can donate, especially since we're not having kids. It's like, let's put that money towards charities that we really love and charities that use the majority of that money for actually what they're doing. Like the art communities I'm thinking of, they really use that money to pay dancers, to pay communities, to like, or pay their employees and to really put on the production. So I'm like, you know, I'm stoked for that one day of being able to be that person, you know? So, okay, shout out to Sean. Congratulations on the diagnosis. We love to see it. There is so much liberty in a diagnosis, and there is so much freedom in knowing more about yourself. And every time you're worried about unlocking something inside of yourself, even though it is scary temporarily, it is always worth it in the end, especially since it will always bring you closer to your joy and your sense of peace. There's nothing better than getting to know yourself, because if there's something truly scary about who you are as a person, you can change it. You can have a different relationship with yourself. And that's what introspection, extrospection allows you to do. It allows you to take that thing you're so afraid of recognizing and admitting to and make it something that used to be a part of your story, but no longer is. But as long as you ignore it, as long as you drag it into your future with you, it will be in your present. Don't bring your baggage into the future. Let it be a story of your past.
Stuck in my head, in real life while in bed, my belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me, cause I'm sick of thinking. Yeah, I'm sick of reaching out for the truth and living life as a fool. Dun, 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 dun.